Hi, everyone. Back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here with all of us today. Uh, this is Mary Esther Miranda Gilbert of the True Health Mastery Institute of Holistic Personal Health Management. And we're back again to talk about how to beat the cold and influenza season. So any of you who just catch the cold or catch the flu every year or more often than you would like, then I'll give you quite a bit of science behind how you can beat it. And I have quite a repertoire myself that I've applied to my kids when they were growing up, and on rare occasion that I've gotten sick, and to anyone else who is sick. There's so many things that you can do that has been proven, but when you apply the science to yourself and you know what works, then that's good news, right? So we have got some really great information for all of you out there. Thanks for so much for being here. And if you're new to the channel, please uh, push the like button. And if you like what you hear tonight, and if you see my other videos and you're interested in what I'm doing, please share and also subscribe. Tap that notification bell so that you'll be notified for all the videos that we're producing every single week. All righty, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, so now, so what I called this week's topic was kick colds and flu to the curb fast this fall and winter. And I'm going to share with you my proven immune system boosting protocol. So we'll be covering preparing your immune system, daily actions that strengthen it, botanicals proven to deactivate bacteria and cold and flu influenza viruses, and the 10 critical botanicals to keep you in your kitchen's arsenal. Just arm yourself with these basic fundamental foods, really, herbs and spices and all these different things, powders and whatnot. I'll share with you what I have found over the years and what the science says. And also the very complex plant compounds called the phytochemicals, or also known as phytonutrients, in all of these plants. So I will show you what the science says, how to stop and destroy these invaders that like to bury themselves in the body's tissues and start multiplying like crazy and just create, their own populations. But we can put a quick stop to that. So also, I'm going to be talking about preparing and maintaining an intelligent, effective immune system. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is oxygenation and hydration. Everyone knows that. You've got to, make sure you're exercising, and because the microbials cannot live in an oxygen environment, although that's changing. The latest science says that they are actually adapting to a higher oxygen environment. And hydration is very important too for flushing things through and flushing things out. Sleep, rest, and relaxation. Everyone knows that, right? Get your rest, eat right, exercise, and make sure you're hydrated. All those things are fundamental by now. Everyone should know that. And also, there's this other aspect of being holistically healthy is to manage your stress, doing that inner work, that inner healing work, working through the traumas and getting and purging all of those emotions that we harbor through the years, we meaning everybody, and we all have to work on that and heal ourselves on the inside, because when you're hurting, then your body's generating toxic chemicals that affect your health. I've done another video on this very subject on my YouTube channel here, so please feel free to explore that one. So, this all has to do with helping your immune system be more effective. So you've got to manage your stress, manage your inside, manage your heart, manage your mind, and your spirit. So also, it's important to not skip meals, because when we skip meals, we become in a negative nitrogen balance. That means your body has to dip into your own body tissues to break things apart in order to produce energy. And so that's a net effect of your being in a nutrient deprivation state. So you want to stay ahead of that curve. And that means that the microbials, the viruses and the bacterium that love to live in that kind of environment, they'll take advantage of the fact that the immune system is at a disadvantage when you're nutrient deprived chronically like that. So also we need to make sure we're balancing our proportions of our proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. That's not really the subject here tonight, although that is extremely important to ward off any kind of immune weakening, so you have to stay nourished that way too. Again, on this YouTube channel, there's this whole bunch of videos here that you can use to educate yourself on the right proteins, the right carbs, and the right fats. So also I'm going to be going over a few topical remedies that are critical to winning this battle against the viruses and the bacterium that we're always exposed to. They're airborne. They exist on surfaces for a while, and so we have to be careful to make sure we're disinfecting our environment, especially when we're cooking, and not contaminate our counters with raw meats, things like that. So we're not really going to go into that either tonight. So I'm going to focus on the phytochemical compounds in plants that will disable the viruses and bacterium's ability to grow in your body and proliferate and populate. All right, so let's go into a little bit about oxygenation. Just as a review for a lot of you out there, deep breath work, which means exercise, or if you like to practice things like yoga or just deep breathing exercises, then that's something that will help reduce and inhibit the populations that like to invade our bodies. So yeah, we'll talk about the oxygen-hating microbials as well. So we've got pathogenic or illness-causing anaerobic, oxygen-hating bacteria that thrive in these low oxygen conditions. So if you're not exercising and you're not drinking enough water, you're not getting enough oxygen. So that's the perfect time for these pathogenic organisms to move in and start growing. So they don't grow in low oxygen they don't grow in oxygen conditions, I should say. That's a whoops. I'm going to correct that right now. Sometimes I get things inverted, right? So cannot grow in oxygen conditions. It's toxic for them. They can't thrive in air. They multiply well in infected tissues. So if you cut yourself and it doesn't get cleansed properly and these microbes move in and they start populating and causing this infection, then, they're diminishing the oxygen concentration in the wound. And so, they're creating a nice little habitat that supports their growth. Also, the upper respiratory tract can contain large numbers of these anaerobic bacteria that's responsible for initiating the bronchial or lung infections. So again, like I said, we're going to cover a lot of these plant compounds that will knock them out of the park, okay? So now we've got types of anaerobic bacteria that have evolved to tolerate oxygen. So we have to be very careful mindful of exercise isn't really enough, right? It's going to help quite a bit, but you've got to nourish yourself and nutrient density is what I call it. Nourish yourself so that you've got the most potent and concentrations of natural whole food derived nutrients to help counterbalance it, because these microbes, as smart as they've gotten, they cannot outsmart these plant compounds. They're highly complex. They're way too complicated for them to figure out. So, fortunate for us, we have the plant kingdom to protect us ultimately. So now the plant phytochemicals, excuse me, the plant phytochemicals that are effective against antibiotic-resistant microbials. So these phytochemicals, also known as phytonutrients, have been shown to counter the resistance development of some infectious bacteria. Scientists have found that these plant compounds can restore the effectiveness of antibiotics by including them in their antibiotic treatments. So the medical communities are starting to sit up and take notice as to how effective the scientists have proven that these phytochemical compounds in these whole foods truly are. So the phytochemicals have demonstrated how they interfere with the bacterial cell wall. So they damage the cell walls of these microbes, so that once their cell walls are broken, then all of their innards, their guts spill out, and they're no longer able to function. Okay, so we've got this biosynthesis that goes on that they are wanting to replicate, and they can't. because they're damaged. So anytime you have a damaged cell, it's not going to work anymore. So this means it's going to impair their DNA replication and repair processes. So they've got little organelles inside their cells, inside their systems too. They're not complete organisms like we are. They're very simplistic compared to what we are, right? So they're basically a cell that replicates. Our cells replicate also. Our cells, replicate our DNA so that our genetic codes are continually expanding and replacing old with new, and the repair processes as well. So also, it inhibits their own protein production. So every single living cell can produce proteins. And us, we need the nourishment in order for us to produce more body proteins. And then they also obstruct their many, many metabolic pathways, their energy production, and all of those other things that our cells do as well. So once we have something that is bad for them, we love oxygen, right? Our bodies love oxygen, and our bodies love and are so compatible with these plant compounds, but not so in these microbes, thank goodness. So, how the common cold and influenza viruses infect the body. Let's talk a little bit about the infamous rhinovirus, right? The cold virus. They're widely known as the cause of the common cold. So the transmission takes place through inhalation of respiratory microdroplets, contaminated surfaces, depending on the type of surface and the temperature and humidity, or direct person to person contact. So that's how we catch colds. Body temperature too, especially when reduced by just 9 degrees Fahrenheit in the nasal cavity, is significant in its vulnerability for catching colds. And then also it's characterized by nasal congestion, rhinorrhea, just draining of the sinuses, cough, sore throat, general discomfort. Anyone who's ever had a cold, and I don't know anyone who hasn't, it recognizes and knows very well what these symptoms feel like, very uncomfortable. But also, the rhinovirus is self-limiting. Our immune systems always figure out how to destroy them, if not right away, then eventually. And the remedies that I'm going to talk about pretty much wipe them out in hours. And I am witness to that, to having witnessed so many people who have caught colds, and I would say, try this and try that, and explain to them the science behind it just briefly. Some people don't want to hear about the science. They just want to get well. What do you have? Tell me what you've got. If it works, let me know. And that's kind of a dangerous thing. You have to know what you're putting in your body, and you have to make sure that it's a good thing, right? So anyway, the rhinoviruses are self-limiting, but they can lead to severe illnesses if you have a weakened immune system. So the rhinoviruses, they don't have that tough outer coating that many other viruses might have. And here's one that's been tested in a laboratory, and they've watched how it grows and they've studied how it works. They call it rhinovirus B14 drug-resistant mutant. So, these viruses, they mutate all the time. If they were just one type of virus, we would have wiped them out a long time ago, right? But they always mutate, those little smart alecks. They're composed of single-stranded RNA, and what they do is they love our DNA. They try to get in there, and they take over, right? And they embed themselves in our DNA. So we have to stop that process as fast and as soon as possible, because we don't want to walk around with all these viruses in some of our DNA. It's not all of our DNA, obviously. We've got multiple trillions of cells, and our immune system figures it out long before anything happens that would change us, turn us into something else other than human. Joking. I hope so. I hope you know that. So in vitro, now in the laboratory, dishes, they feed these microbes just to see what they do. And then they give them whatever toxins, whatever, countermeasures they have that they want to try on these viruses to see what destroys them, see what makes them grow, that kind of thing. So they've got generations of cells going on in the scientific world that have been studying viruses and bacteria, all this time. So they understand how they work, and also diseases. They have cell cultures of cancer cells, different types of cancers. So that's what in vitro means. So a lot of the science that has been done on these kinds of studies will show you exactly what cells have been, affected. So anyway, in vitro, this particular mutant rhinovirus is shown to replicate best at 91.4 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. So if a person gets chilled, very, very chilled, and of course they're exposed to cold, weather, and they happen to be malnourished or tired, or something that weakens their immune system, then they're likely to catch a cold. In vitro, lower airway epithelial cell cultures best support the rhinovirus's replication better than those derived from the upper airways. So it's the lower, part of the lungs that are affected. So the flu virus, the influenza viruses, they affect the respiratory tract by direct viral infestation or damaged immune system response. So again, if your immune system is compromised and weakened, then you're going to be more susceptible to these tougher type of viruses. They're different from the rhinovirus. The infectious particles are released into the respiratory epithelium. So let me show you what the epithelium looks like for those of you who aren't sure. So here we have the lungs, right? The respiratory tract, and this little square, I don't know if you can see it, it's pretty small. They've enlarged it for us here in this large square, just so we see what's going on. So the movement of mucus to the pharynx, going from, the upper part of the sinuses down to the respiratory tract. So now we've got these particulates that are landing on these tissues. We've got a mucus cell and a mucus cell layer that protects us from these particles that we inhale all the time. So when that you have that mucus build up, then it's going to feel very uncomfortable. Your immune system's going to, your immune cells are going to detect, something is wrong in that area, and they're going to come in and try to alleviate that. So we have these hair-like projections called the cilia. They always line all these different types of tissues in the body. We've got them in the digestive tract, and we've got them in the airway passages. So these are going to also, prevent things from entering the tissues. But they love to invade anyway, these rhinoviruses and influenza viruses. So they love to just infiltrate and set up homes right there in our tissues. Okay, so now here's a micro photograph, electron microphotograph of what these actually look like. So, again, here's the cilia, and then here's the little new cells that are forming in the tissues, and the goblet cells that produce mucus. And then we've got the basement membranes. So underneath, we're going deeper and deeper into our tissues, into the collagen and connective tissues and things like that. So anyhow, and there's some blood vessels going on here, delivering oxygen and nutrients and water to the tissues, kind of thing. And then we've got the lymphocytes, they're a type of cell that the lymph system produces, and the lymph system is what carry some of our immune cells. So, all this is going on. This is very dynamic, ever changing and ever moving, ever circulating. So our job is to put something in our bodies that will stop the production, the growth of these microorganisms. All right, boy, if I didn't have my glasses on, I could read that pretty well, couldn't I? All right, so transmission, again, it occurs through the air from an infected individual. 30 to 40% of those lab-confirmed influenza have acute pneumonia. So, up to 40% of people are walking around with pneumonia. And this would be a viral pneumonia, but you can also have bacterial pneumonia, something that infects the lungs, whether it's a virus or a bacteria. So they're also present, like I just said, with bacterial pneumonia occurring with a frequency of 30 to 50% in adults and children. Acute respiratory distress syndrome, ARDS. Influenza A occurs in adults aged 36 to 55 in pregnancy and obesity. So, people who are excuse me, I'm correcting my document as we go along. I try to, just edit everything perfectly, but sometimes when I'm talking, I see something else. All right, so anyhow, yeah, it's pretty common, isn't it? People's immune system are always suffering from these little monsters. So influenza is suspected in patients with severe pneumonia, So if you've got bacterial pneumonia, chances are you're going to be vulnerable to the virus as well. ARDS or sepsis, people who have, poisoning or any kind of toxicity because of what goes on in the colon. If you don't have a healthy colon environment, then you can become infected. Encephalitis, which is the inflammation of the brain and the nervous system. Myocarditis, inflammation in the heart. And rhabdomyolysis, the breakdown of muscle tissue, releasing all these harmful substances into the bloodstream. And that means just stress chemicals, toxins, and that kind of thing. That's why over the years, I have found that fundamentally, when you nourish the body completely and correctly, and you eliminate all of these processed foods and synthetics and all these toxins that the body takes in and retains and causes all kinds of disruptions in the whole entire system, then you're going to have these kinds of health issues. All right, so this one, it's not a very good photograph because I had trouble borrowing it, so to speak. I always cite my sources. This is called fair use when it comes to copyright, so I always give people the credit that they deserve. But for some reason, I kind of tricked it into letting me save it on my computer. But anyhow, again, this is not violating any copyright laws, believe me. All right, so this is how a virus invades a cell. So number one, I don't know if you can read that, but the first step is a virus enters the cell. Right here it is, breaking open the cell membrane in our cells. And then the second step is substances in the cell begin to strip off the virus's outer coat of protein. Okay, so our immune system detects it and it tries to destroy it. And number three, the nucleic acid in the center of the virus is released. So, then you've got the genetic code, that RNA who's looking for our DNA, that gets released inside the cell. And that's the ultimate trickery. Number four, the nucleic acid gets into the cell's chemical manufacturing system. So again, it impairs our ability for our cells to function properly. Number five, the cell ignores its own chemical needs and switches to making new viruses. So again, it's messing with our DNA, our genetic code of instructions, and all of a sudden it allows this replication to go on in our cells. Number six, the cell is sometimes destroyed in the process. So, viruses don't care. They don't care if they're destroying our cells. Many of the new viruses are released to infect other cells. So, there they go, off to other areas of the body. So, I'm glad that God has given us the plant chemicals to counter this trickery, right? So now an influenza A virus, now you've got a depiction of one side of a lung here. And so you've got a normal lung on one side and influenza A virus infected lung on the other side, and all this going on, what we just saw up here. So then down here, it shows us our airway. Here's our airway here, looking straight down. And so this is what a normal one looks like, right? And then here we are with the infection, all of these things going on inside here, and our immune system is fighting like heroes to get rid of all of this stuff before it damages our DNA. So here's a quote from Health and Medicine. Viruses hijack healthy host cells, exploiting resources and reproductive machinery for rapid replication. However, a major consequence of speedy reproduction is the increased risk of random genetic mutation, which can result in a myriad of unique viral strains. Therefore, viruses are very difficult to treat. They're always changing. They're always, changing it up. Vaccines that target a specific viral strain could become ineffective in the long term. This is because viruses could genetically alter to become resistant to the antibodies, which are our immune system, raised by a vaccine. Ultimately, a conflict exists between humans and viruses, with each side battling to overcome obstacles created by the opposition. It's a war, So now there's another section here that I will talk about once the video is turned off because it's a sensitive issue, but I will show you some of the science of what the scientists have found on other types of the V word. Okay, on to the next section, sleep, rest, relaxation, the sleep and immune connection. I've covered this before, but I'm going to review it again just to make sure that we want to have our immune system just ready for battle, just nipping these monsters in the bud, right? So now, sleep deficiency compromises immune functions via systemic low-grade inflammatory responses. In other words, different aspects of immunology, such as the cytokine storm, that when you have inflammation in the body, then the body produces these proteins that go in and detect, or police the area to find out why there's inflammation. So the cytokines are present whenever there's inflammation. If you ever have a laboratory medical, workup done, then they'll tell you what your cytokine levels are. And the T cell activity, that's another type of immune cell. They're affected by sleep as well as the functions of other white blood cells like the B cells, the neutrophils, the macrophages. The macrophages are my favorite immune cells because they'll just go in and they'll bite the outer coating of, bacteria or virus, and they will damage it and digest it. Once you break something down to the elemental levels, like what's on the periodic table of the elements, you've just got the elements left, right? The carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and all these other things. So once things are broken down to their most minute levels, then it's easy for our immune cells to just, move them along and get them out of the body. So there's also changes in pro-inflammatory proteins called TNF alpha, and anti-inflammatory proteins are produced in the body and occur with immune disrupting inadequate sleep. Basically, if you're not getting enough sleep, then you're going to have this inflammatory enzyme or protein present in the body. Ongoing sleep pattern disruptions have been linked to increased inflammation intensity and are suspected in the course of lifestyle-related illnesses. So, have a healthy lifestyle. If you are partying all night and drinking a lot of toxic, beverages, I should do a course or a session on alcohol, what alcohol does. Okay, everybody knows it's bad for you, but it is addictive, and there's more damage to the body than people realize. So yeah, I think I'll make a note of that and make that one of our subject matter. All right, so many studies show improper sleep increases the chances of viral infections of the common cold. So again, if you're not getting enough sleep, that's another, vulnerability. The tumor necrosis factor, or TNF alpha, and interleukin IL are key factors that induce disruptions in the REM sleep period and sleep-wake cycle. So these are the inflammatory proteins. There's many of them, but the main ones that science has really studied a lot are these here. During normal sleep, there are decreased levels of stress chemicals in the body that generates during stress reactions when one is awake, such as norepinephrine, epinephrine, and cortisol. So these are the stress chemicals that we produce when the body's in distress. During normal sleep, there are increased levels of melatonin, prolactin, and growth hormone released by the brain's pituitary gland. So these are the beneficial hormones that you want in your body so that your body can stay younger. Your cells can behave like a younger person would and not start breaking down and be more vulnerable to these microbes. Also, during normal sleep, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So we've got these glands in the brain, and the adrenalins, and they all will talk to each other and communicate together to determine what's going on in the body. And the sympathetic nervous system, the part of the nervous system that goes responds to stress. So that axis also, these are all what are called down regulations. The response to stimuli are decreased by reducing the number of sensitivity receptors on our cell membranes. And I hope this isn't too technical for people, but just imagine our trillions of cells. Let's enlarge a cell, 1 billion times. Okay, we're looking at this cell, and it's got a plasmic membrane that only allows certain things inside the body. So we've got all these receptor sites that are sitting there on the cell membrane that determine what gets to go inside of our cells. Okay, so now when we have this response, then it's going to either allow or not. But if you have a reduced immunity problem going on, if you're weakened, then it's not going to be it's going to allow more things into the cell. So we've got to make sure that those sensitivity receptors sitting on the cell membranes are intelligent. And what is that? How do we do that? We nourish ourselves completely and correctly. Fundamentally, everything comes down to being highly nourished. That's it. That's all you have to do in order to prevent anything going on with your immune system or any other system, any other health degenerative process. And I will say that over and over again, forever and ever, because I cannot say that enough. So here is a chart that or rather an image that I thought you might want to take a look at. So when your sleep is disrupted, just to summarize, you've got these inflammatory cytokine proteins going in, looking at the inflammation, causing inflammation. They're sending signals to all these different cells in the body. This, causing inflammation, and it's doing damage to the nerves, creating inflammation in the central nervous system, and it's going to affect the hormonal system, the depression, stress, and other cognitive diseases, going on here. And then if we look at the other side, a lot of these things on the left can also lead to these things on the right. So let's go over to the top left-hand corner. We have an inflammatory gene expression, right? And so we're vulnerable to the viruses that go into our cells and start messing with our genes. And then we've got these factors, they're the stress, inflammatory things going on, and more stress and inflammatory proteins going on here. And so it's going to, alter your sleep cycles and everything. It's going to alter how your body works. So anyhow, the only thing we can do is just make sure we get enough sleep and we don't have many of these problems. All right, so now nervous system, I'm not going to just go too much into all of these, but as you can see, we've got the hyperarousal of the nervous system. So, things like panic and fear and worry, irritation, rage, impulsivity, racing heart, increased stress hormones, aggression, irritability. So, all of our sympathetic nervous system is just going haywire. But if you're highly nourished, then your body will be able to calm that down and tone that down and help you react in a different way, not in such a panic. And it'll help attenuate these stress chemicals that the body produces under these conditions as well. So again, being highly nourished will help prevent a lot of these reactions. So then we've got a window of tolerance when you're engaged and curious or energetic, emotionally stable, mentally clear, resilient, centered, grounded, all these things that our anti-stress gurus tell us to work on. So, we've got a state of calm and stability. Your nervous system is working properly. And if it reacts, then it quickly goes back to what it's called homeostasis or biochemical balance, biochemical calm, And then we've got hyperarousal or immobilized. So we've got numb, disconnected, foggy, shut down, low energy, fatigue, dissociation. So someone who is poorly nourished, over time, they become sick and their body starts degenerating. And so their system can't handle this kind of stress. So then that's when the disease process starts setting in, and it can be reversed. I see all of this I've been seeing this happen for over 45 years. When a person is highly nourished, they will suddenly start, their body will start accepting all these desperately needed nutrients and start working in reverse to rebuild the system and improve how your cells operate. And with that comes the improved immune system as well. So maintaining your biological circadian rhythms, and preventing disruptions leading to degenerative health as well. So again, regular sleep, rest, relaxation that maintains the neuroendocrine or the nervous system, hormonal system. It helps you regulate your body temperature and your sleep dash wakefulness. So these sleep cycles are extremely important. Getting a normal, regular time you go to bed is always very, very important for your immune system. Your sleep wakefulness disruptions of circadian rhythms can lead to risk of metabolic disorders, diabetes, cardiovascular anomalies, cancer. So there's a snowball effect, obviously, right? I hope you can see that. Once you stop nourishing your body correctly, then it starts to disintegrate, to degenerate, and the cells aren't going to function optimally. So they're going to be more vulnerable to the disease process. So sleep modulates memory, mood, concentration, body temperature, immunological responses. Mental health and behavior has been shown to be negatively altered due to lack of sleep. Sleep modulates the gut microbiome, which in turn influences immune homeostasis. So another aspect of your immune system is to make sure that everything in your colon has the right populations of aerobic or oxygen-loving bacteria. And they send off signals to the brain. So they communicate, and they can end up communicating with the hormonal system. They can regulate your mood. So it's important to eat the fiber and drink the water and have, half of your diet or more in the raw food category, so that you have these enzyme active, wonderfully charged phytochemical compounds in these plants that that God has given us to help us stay well. So, that's pretty much what we have to do, right? We have to maintain it by nourishing ourselves properly, and let your body do the rest. It knows how. So I'm not one of those, spiritual gurus, although I am a spiritual person, but I just thought I would throw that in for good measure, because we have to look at ourselves as a holistic organism and not just it's great, if you're highly nourished and you're exercising, you're getting your rest, and working on your own, inner work, your inner healing, strengthening your spirit, going through life, and just try not to react, in a negative way to whatever challenges come our way. It's how we react to everything, right? That makes us wiser and stronger. So there's so many things that we go through that, looking back in retrospect, often we think, okay, I understand why that happened. I wouldn't be the person I am today if, that hadn't happened. And God forbid anything very tragic happen in your lives that would, sometimes it changes the course of a person for the better or not the better. And I hope and pray that everything happens for the best for everyone. Okay, so now, again, I'm just going over this briefly. The great balancing act of optimal true health vibrancy. So, again, it's all that, doing all those things that I pointed out to make sure you're staying healthy, and empowering yourself by pursuing your desired life activities. When you're highly nourished, you have more courage to do that. Your body's in a higher place. And so you can perceive things differently, and you have the inner strength to pursue something that might have terrified you and just paralyzed you in your life that you didn't want to pursue before. So it's not all pie. What does it say? Pie in the sky. It's not all that. If you have the strength and the health to just try and pursue it, right? And that is so rewarding. I think that a little step of courage comes back many, many fold in many ways, in many positive ways in people's lives. I've seen this before. And of course, working on myself over these decades, I have seen that courage tends to expand once you start, taking steps toward that. All right, so that's all. I'm not going to lecture on that because that's out of my area of expertise. I'm still a student in many ways of life, but everyone knows that when you're building your life experiences, you're going to have grow as a person, right? You're going to acquire skills and knowledge and wisdom. You're going to be interactive with better communication skills. You're going to grow that way. You're going to gather some wisdom along the way, right? And with that comes self-respect and setting boundaries, maybe if you have to, claiming your personal space, that kind of thing. Staying highly nourished, that all comes back to that. It all comes back to that. All right, so that's pretty much what I wanted to dabble in that, because that's going to affect your immune system. You know, if you're happier in life, if you're satisfied in life, and you've got stuff that you want to do in life and you're excited and passionate about them, that's going to put your biochemistry in a much better place. You're not going to hinder your immune system at all if you are in that place. So I tend to reiterate a lot of these, I realize, but I wanted to get to the point where we can talk about the botanicals that have been proven to be antimicrobial, antibacterial, antiviral. These foods here are very well researched. Many botanicals. My book has 109 botanicals in it, the Potent Superfoods for Lifelong True Health book. And so I have researched extensively what these 109 botanicals, what the science has discovered about these phytochemical complexes and how they've been proven to help the body detoxify and improve the immune system's functioning and other organ system functions. They're so exciting when you look at the science. So if you are interested in exploring what these that I listed here and many other common foods, common botanicals, if you can't find them in the grocery store, you can certainly order them online, you know, in the form of powders and supplements and such. So it's important to just put these positive, correct, biologically correct botanicals in your body and watch that miraculous thing happen that the body does, you know, for your health. So anyhow, these contain these foods here. There's, you know, they're fruits, herbs, and spices. They have been shown to reduce inflammation, improve the immune system by just helping the immune system deactivate these microbes, you know, tear into them and break them apart so they can't replicate anymore. And they're going to give off some toxins. And so a lot of these phytochemical compounds in these foods will counter a lot of those toxins that these illness-causing microbes give off. You know, it's part of their respiration, it's part of their detoxification themselves. So these foods here are what I have used to knock a cold out of the park. Okay, cloves and cinnamon, nutmeg, and turmeric. Please don't call it turmeric. It's an R in there, people. Call it turmeric, okay? All right. It's like nuclear. You know, people say nuclear, and there's no such word. Anyhow, it's a pet peeve of mine. All right. So then raw garlic and onion, you know, that food group too. The super mushrooms, there are so many mushrooms that are so medicinal and so great for the immune system. And again, plenty of science behind that. I cover 7 of those super mushrooms in my book. Whole fruit mangosteen, also another botanical that's known throughout the world. The Easy-Act tea formulation started by a nurse back in the 1930s, and she was doing a lot of helping her patients, you know, get well too. Herbs that you have in your kitchen, you know, oregano, thyme, parsley, cilantro, especially the fresh ones. The dried ones are fine, but the fresh ones are even more potent. The citrus fruits, especially their peelings, okay? People can grind or eat a whole entire orange, you know, the whole thing is edible, and lemons too, and then grapefruit, you know, other citrus fruits like that. They all have high medicinal qualities. Organic extra virgin olive oil, always refrigerate your oils. Raw aloe vera leaf, I have a gigantic aloe vera plant right on my porch, and I often use that for sometimes, you know, when you go to a restaurant and they don't watch the temperatures of their foods and you get food poisoning, I can knock it out in hours. Okay, so the raw aloe vera leaf is very good for that as well. All these other foods are great for food poisoning too, because they're caused by microbes, bacterium. And the hot chili peppers, they're great anti-inflammatory. They've got many great phytochemicals as well. So these are the main ones that I use to just you know, kick anything out of the park that doesn't belong in the body. Alrighty, so also, you know, topical remedies. I did a video recently on essential oils, so please view that. There's safety precautions when you're using such highly concentrated phytochemicals in these very potent foods. So, you know, you can apply them to the bottom of your feet, and they go through the circulatory system, and they will disable a lot of these microbials. The science is very strong on that. And if you are considering using the essential oils, please view my video on the precautions and proper use of essential oils. They're not toxic, but they're very, very strong, and they could cause irritation on sensitive areas of the skin. So you want to just apply them to the thick pads of the bottom of our feet. You know, that's the best way to let them go in. All right. So these are the references. I always encourage people to look at these scientific references if you want to see what the scientists have done, how they've discovered these, and how they've proven, you know, how well these plant chemicals work. Then you'll just have this whole education. You know, there's just deep diving into some of these, and you know, just do what you can to learn the vocabulary, you know, that these scientists use. So it's after a while you get used to it. But basically, you know, you'll see how they work. You see how they use the scientific method to prove something. And I like to use peer-reviewed studies. They gather hundreds, you know, of articles, and they pick out the most credible and the most reliable, you know, kinds of studies that have been done on these botanicals. So yeah, it's pretty fun to go into that. I think so. I know I'm a geek when it comes to that, but anyhow, I hope you find the time and the interest to do that. It's life-saving stuff, everyone. It's life-saving stuff. So also, if you want to become a member, let me skip over to that part here. A member of the True Health Mastery Institute. Of course, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's free, of course. But if you want further information, once this video is turned off, then I hang around with my members, and we have discussions, and we learn more. You know, there's more that I can teach when it's not going to feel like we're going to be censored on YouTube. So we've got a lot of information. Like I said earlier, we're going to be covering different kinds of viruses that would censor us on YouTube. Okay, so now we have the True Health Mastery Institute that you can join as a member. And if I take you there quickly, you'll just see a quick view of it. So my main website is holisticchoices.com. And if you go there and click on the True Health Mastery Institute link on the left, then you'll see the description, all the perks and the advantages you get when you're a member. And then you can, if you want to join, you can just join here. It's a very fast enrollment, $12.97 a month for saving your life and investing in your health and having the right knowledge, and not worry about getting any misinformation that leads you off in the wrong direction. Then the research has already been done for you, and I teach people how to do their own research and everything so that you can truly master your health. So this is an ongoing thing. You know, every week I post new videos on different subjects. I will never run out of any subject material, any subject matter, because you know, there's new science coming on, and the human body is extremely complex that even the best scientists in the world are still discovering things about the human body. And also, I have a book called Nutritional Synergy. If you'd like to purchase the book, you can do that. And also, I have the course that goes along with it, the Nutritional Synergy course, a system that I set up many years ago, where if you choose from the 14 categories in the system, then you won't have to worry if you're eating the right foods or not, if there's anything missing in your diet. If you choose foods from my system, you'll automatically be highly nourished. All right, so that's pretty much what I have for everyone. Let me go ahead and stop my share. All right, and with that, I am going to say goodnight to all of you who have subscribed to my channel. If you haven't, go ahead and please subscribe so that you can continue on, and consider joining us at the True Health Mastery Institute. See you next time. Bye-bye.